Hey everyone, it's Maeve here. We're a couple days past Halloween, and I had a couple thoughts that I wanted to share, a couple conversations that I had, and this has kind of been a few days process. It's been pretty interesting, so I'm going to share it here. Cultural appropriation. So I think that this is kind of a big topic, and I think a lot of people want to simplify it, but I don't think it's super simple. So as far as Halloween came and went, and I just wanted to model for you guys, there's a couple conversations that I had with my daughter, and she's 5, about costumes and whatnot. I'm sure you guys all have heard, it's a big time of the year that we talk about cultural appropriation. So the conversations that came up with my daughter were, first she said that she had one of the boys in her class who were going to be Black Panther. And so the first question I had for her was, is this boy a person of color or black, or are they white? And she said, well, they're white. And I said, well, that's really not appropriate for him to be wearing that costume then. And so I explained to her, why it's not appropriate for white people to be wearing costumes that are from the culture of people of color, period, right? She said it doesn't always have to be like that. I mean, we have conversations like this a lot. And I said, well, actually it does, because it's just never okay. So there's just this little bit of learning that we all have to do, and it's important to have those conversations. So if maybe you had children or if you even wore a costume that was probably inappropriate, you wearing a costume that was not actually from your own culture, then maybe you can sit with that and say, okay, how does that feel? Why do I feel the way I feel? Is there something I can do better? Is there something I can learn from it, and just try to be more mindful in the future. Those feelings are there. Those kind of maybe icky feelings are there to help you learn something new, and also create a culture where we can all live in, or in a diverse culture where we're understanding of each other's cultures and we can integrate, but we don't need to steal or appropriate each other. So that's one thought. The other conversation I had with her was, she had made the comment oh, I just love Halloween so much because it's the day of fun and costumes and candy. And I was like, that's the American version, right? So being that I just wanted to share, that's actually the American version. So I was really excited that I was able to actually be able to bring up Coco, the movie, because we had some reference for it. Right? Okay, this is actually the Day of the Dead, and this is a cultural holiday for other people in the world, and America has kind of taken it over as Halloween, when it has much more meaning to other people than that. And so we went into that, and we were talking about what happens in Coco, and that it's actually a day to remember your beloveds that have passed away, and you give remembrance and gifts to them and whatnot, so that they can come through in the thinning veil and you can talk with them and connect with them. And I just want to note too that thinning veil is there for everyone. That's more of a universal thing where because of whatever's happening in the universe at that time, I don't know exactly what that is, but we can all access the spirits more, but I think different peoples and different cultures have a different view of that, right? So that can change depending on where you're looking at it from, or what context. So we got into that conversation, and she was, my grandma passed away actually just over a month ago, and she said, well, yeah, I would like to talk to Grandma, or Gigi, we called her, but I would be too embarrassed to do it in front of somebody else. And at first I just sympathized with that, because I'm sad that she would feel that way. And then I realized, my grandma wanted a celebration of life in the spring, and so our family didn't do anything specific in a very specific way to process the transition that she was taking. And so I just realized that when my daughter said that, she needed a time and a place to process it, and I did too. And that as white people, where we're so disconnected from our own cultural heritage is maybe, I think that's more often than we want to admit, that we didn't have any rituals to do that with her, or, we didn't have anything really specific to remember my grandma by, or to say our goodbyes to her. I mean, I think we did do some of the processes, but kind of on an ongoing basis. We hadn't really had that conversation continue. And so I think that was just important to me, because it realized dang, I need to be figuring out what are my actual ancestral rituals and heritage and lineage that I do have a right to be practicing, right? So that instead of it being well, they won't let me, this, I can't practice this from this other culture, and being upset about that. Well, no, yeah, you honor their culture as theirs, and you find your own and discover what that is. And I think for a lot of white people, and I'm speaking from this as my own experience, it is important for me to figure out what that is for myself and have a responsibility to that, instead of trying to feel like we can just nitpick it from everyone else's culture. My thoughts. Okay, so that was the two big things that I wanted to talk about from that I kind of noticed from Halloween. So the first time I started recording this video, I was actually, I don't know, my hair was super messy, and I had put it in 2 French braids, and I was wearing French braids for that video, and I was talking about cultural appropriation. And after I did that video, I was like, oh my gosh, is this okay? And I was like, well, obviously I wouldn't do cornrows in my hair, right? I wouldn't have an extravagant braid that is obviously not a white culture or whatever that means. But I was like, okay, but is 2 braids okay? And braids have existed in lots of different cultures. So how do we understand all of that? And so I actually posted that question in a fan group for NACO and Medicine for the People. I don't know if you guys know him, but and the band, but shout out to them and Trevor Hall and some of the others. So I thought that these people, this group of people, this fan group that are on this page, would be some good people, a safe community to actually process that question with. Turns out some of it was good, some of it was bad. I suppose you can find that anywhere on the internet. So I just thought it was interesting. It kind of gave me a little bit of sneak peek into just the different sides and different perspectives that there are about culture, and about white culture, and about people of color and their cultures. So one person was offended that I said white culture, and I just want to reiterate that, because I'm going to be using that a lot in our videos. When I say white culture, it is a blanket statement. It is referencing that in our society, in our society, I'm not going to speak for the world, but there is this, white people are the dominant group. Meaning, when we talk about oppression, right, oppression is top down. The people in power up at the top, and they have influence over those that are under them. And in our society, it is white men who have the most, who are on the top of the hierarchy. And then it goes, other white people, men, like the most oppressed of our society are women of color, right? Because they're both a woman. So like in their gender, they're also, but then also in their culture or race, they are oppressed. So shout out to you ladies. I love you. And I see you. Okay, where am I going with this? So when I talk about white culture, I'm just meaning I am making a blanket statement about, yeah, it's white people who have the power in our society. So when I'm looked at versus a woman of color, I'm going to have more status than she will have. And vice, like if it were a man of color versus a man that's white, or you can get all tricky with it too and say, even white adults have more stance in our society than children of color, right? And that's where we get really fucked up. So, or that's where we should be really, whole nother tangent. I'm going to try not to go down. Okay, let's see. There was a lot of people who just laughed at the post. Like, they wanted to make fun of it. And I was like, this is not, like, I'm not meaning this as a joke. It's a serious question. So I think, like, no matter where you are on your journey, that doesn't mean that somebody else isn't still trying to figure something out like that. And, like, maybe that you think is just common knowledge or something. Like, we don't get to judge each other's journeys, so just don't do that. Please, like, and that's kind of our oneness, right? Like, if you judge someone else, you're judging yourself, and that's a good mirror for you. And then the other one was, this is kind of like a hippie group, enlightenment. And I was like, okay, some of these responses aren't very enlightened. So that's what, just like, don't expect too much from people sometimes. Just meet them face value with love and light and work through it. What else? A lot of white people were saying, you do you, girl, like, it's fine, you can just wear your hair the way you want to, and like if other people judge you, then that's on them. And at first that feels good, like, oh yeah, like cool, I'm encouraged and I can still be who I am. And that's fine until I do, like, I want to be who I am too. But I don't want it to be in a way of this, like, me taking advantage of my position in society as a white person. Then it doesn't feel good anymore, right? Like, that shouldn't feel good. So another point that people are making is like, we're all trying to be one. If we're all trying to be one, then we have to get over some of these, you can't do this, otherwise it's cultural appropriation. Just do what you want, live your life for you. We're all one anyways. And I get that. Like, I want to be able to say, like, yeah, we're all one of the same people, and we love each other, and we all get treated equally, but we're not there yet. And to just be able to, to be able to say, we're all one, just do what you want, means that I would be silencing the abuses that are happening to people of color, even today, right? So, like, not only historically would I be silencing that, but this stuff is still happening. So, if we want to say that we're one today, that's insanity, because we're not one. If you look at the way our society is working right now, if you look at the way that people are treating each other, And again, how we're treating people of color, minorities, people from other cultures, asylum seekers, all of that. Like, if we look at that, we are not one yet. There is so much going on that we as white people are still saying, oh no, you're the other. Like, that's your issue. Or, we're not doing that to you. What are you talking about? Oh, well, that person deserved it. And ick. Like, we still have to, and this is true for any healing. So I'm a therapist. So if we are going to do cultural, like social healing, but also this is true for individual and relational healing with other people, first I have to be able to say, like, this trauma happened to me and this is how it made me feel, and this is like the truth of it and the rawness of it, and that needs to be held in a very safe, understanding, inclusive way. So by saying, oh, we're all one, you can do what you want, don't worry about appropriating other people's cultures right now, we're all one anyways, I think is ignoring the abuses and trauma of people of color and minorities, and we're doing that still, right? So we cannot be one with each other until we have, as white people and in our society as a group of white people, acknowledged the pain and the suffering that we historically, and today we continue to do it, cause people that are different than us. And that's why this is a moral issue, because it comes back to my original video of what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? Are you going to look at somebody in the face who says, what you're doing right now is stripping my own culture of its sacredness because you're doing it as a white person and you're not entitled to it? Basically, like, as white people, we are not entitled to everyone else's rituals, beliefs, hairstyles, culture. You know, like, we're not just blatantly, no matter what, entitled to that. And so when, like, as a white person, if you were to have a person of color come up to you and say that, I would really encourage you to figure out what would your response be to that. Because mine would be, I totally understand. Or if I don't understand, I would say, please forgive me. Would you be willing to talk about it with me? Because some people might not want to talk about it. And if they have anger about it, resentments, or they just they're tired of talking about it because they have been for decades, years, then respect that too. Like, they get to feel that way, and you're figuring this stuff out as a white person is not their responsibility. So if you say, can you help me understand this more? And they say, no, I don't want to. That's okay. That's okay. You do not get to take that personally. You just then have to know where, okay, I need to go somewhere else for some of this information, and that's fine. Other things about cultural appropriation that came up from this post, as long as it's not for profit, that was one of the reasons. So I just wanted to reiterate, ask yourself, with the costumes thing, like, some people want to say, well, it's just a costume, why can't I just wear it? I'm trying to actually support this culture by wearing this costume tonight. And so I would sit with yourself if you're a white person and you use that reasoning, because if you say that, I want you to connect with yourself and ask yourself, what have I done in the last year that showed support for this culture? Or am I just using that reasoning as a scapegoat to be allowed to wear their culture as my costume, because that's what's inappropriate about it, is when we make a costume out of someone's culture, we're bleaching that costume from like the sacredness and the deeper meaning and the cultural significance that outfit or those, that, I don't know how else to call it, so that's my own stuff here. But when we turn their culture into our costume, that's exactly what's wrong with cultural appropriation, because you're not having a respect for it. You're just saying, oh, I have a right to this, when you actually don't. So there are other ways that you can support other cultures and other people of color, or all of this, and you can do all of that and support those people without appropriating their culture. I promise you it's possible. What else? I think that's all. This was a super long video. I guess that's okay, because it's an important topic. What I concluded from all of this, because I was sitting here reading all these comments, another one of them was telling white people to just sit back and listen to the people of color who are answering to the question, because they're the people who are experiencing the oppression. And I think that's true too, right? So like, it's more important to hear from people who are living under the oppression about what their opinion is on it, and what is it that we need to learn from them, versus learning from other white people, because those other white people that you might be getting your information from might be wrong. So that's why I don't promise to be right in everything, and I'm sorry if there's things that I've said in here that are maybe not correct, and I think that's okay. I'm just trying to support these conversations from white people to other white people, because it's just as much our responsibility to be doing that. This is my third video. There's 2 more that I've already done. One of them is an introduction and intentions video about what I am doing here. So hopefully you click over to there on YouTube and watch that. I will be having this on YouTube as well. Please post any questions or thoughts you have on it. I have a Instagram, but I'm trying to still figure out how to use it. Okay. Love and light to all of you. And I welcome any responses, and I hope that you have conversations that are meaningful and productive with each other. So I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.